Welcome back from our lunch break. We're energized and ready to dive into the third panel discussion of the day. Before we introduce our esteemed panelists, let's turn our attention to a critical topic in today's workplace: microaggressions. These are subtle, often unintentional, but harmful behaviors or comments that communicate negative messages about someone's race, gender, orientation, religion, or other identity groups. While seemingly insignificant on the surface, microaggressions can build up over time, creating a hostile work environment and negatively impacting employee well-being, engagement, and performance. Now, this panel discussion will delve deeper into identifying and understanding microaggressions. We'll explore how unconscious biases plays a role and equip ourselves with strategies to overcome these biases, but both individually and as a collective. So to guide us through this important conversation, I'd like to introduce our incredible panel of experts. Rasha Aljuz, founder of Lady Lingua Limited. Rasha is a champion for women's leadership. As the founder of Lady Lingua Limited, the first ever home-based business of its kind, she empowers women to navigate the entrepreneurial journey. With over 24 years of experience, Rasha's Whole You method takes a holistic approach to nurturing authentic leadership, helping women drive change and create lasting legacies. Next up, we have Sarah Obaid. Sarah is a multi-talented professional with expertise in coaching, HR, and business strategy. She's a PCC accredited coach, an HRBP certified coach, and a management consultant who provides custom solutions for individuals and organizations. Her areas of expertise include coaching entrepreneurs, supporting HR transformation, and guiding organizational development. She's also an angel investor in Playbook, an edtech platform empowering women learners to design their careers and well-being. Well, we just can't get enough of our next panelist. Please join me in welcoming back the ever-brilliant Ms. Nilakshi Mukherjee, Senior Director at the Next Milestone Technologies, who delightfully returns to grace the stage. Get ready for another dose of her incredible insights. And I'd now like to introduce the person who will be guiding us through this important discussion, Fatima Ibrahim, an ICF and ACTP accredited executive coach. Fatima brings a wealth of experience in HR and leadership development. Having spent over 22 years in the field, her expertise in fostering authentic leadership makes her perfectly suited to moderate this discussion on microaggressions and navigating workplace dynamics. Let's give a warm welcome to our moderator, and our panelists for this discussion. Fatima, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody, for the introduction. Amazing. This having this panel with all this expertise here, it's really, really enriching and overwhelming. So today we're talking about a very, very important subject here, which is microaggression at work. I would like to start with you, Ms. Nilakshi. So what is the definition of microaggression in your opinion?
That was a wonderful introduction by our moderator. Thanks for that. And thanks, Fatima, for taking the lead and looking forward to a great discussion. Thanks for your question. So, yes, we lead everything with a definition. though the definitions get expanded over time and they don't stay in the limits of what it was originally defined as. And the reason I'm talking about that is, see, microaggressions at workplace or wherever else, typically when it was defined, it was defined as a certain behavior which is mutilated maybe towards a certain marginalized section of the society. Now, I would not get into the nitty-gritties of defining what we mean by marginalized, but anybody who doesn't come across as privileged would be considered as marginalized, and any behavior which would hurt or be not of an accordance was to be considered as microaggression, whether at workplace or otherwise. Having said so, I was pondering before this discussion as to does it really limit itself to the marginalized, right? And that's when I was thinking way back, probably around the 2010s, when I was working with a particular organization as their head of HR. I remembered this perfectly apt example of explaining how microaggression really doesn't any longer limit itself to any section of the society. So we had this perfectly able-bodied gentleman who's supposed to be the most non-diverse population in today's world. So he was a young man who was working in the organization. He came to me one of the days and said, Milakshi, I'm facing some trouble at work. Can you help me? I said, of course. I mean, that's exactly why we're here. What is it? So he said, I have a problem at home. Can I trust you to discuss it with you? And by all means. She said, I have a young wife and a 5-year-old son. And not many people know other than my family that my wife doesn't see too well. She has a problem with her eyes. I wouldn't call her blind. I wouldn't put it as an impairment. But having said so, she doesn't see too well. It is a medical condition. I said, okay. And I was still surprised. I was like, all right. And is there something I can do about it? He's like, no, it is not about her. It is about me. Okay, I'm listening. He's like, at work, I leave at 6:30. So let me first ask you, is that all right? So yeah, completely all right. If you're coming in at 9:30, leaving at 6:30 looks completely all right to me. He said, but then there is a large section of your organization, and he was still new in the organization. And there was a large section of the organization which sort of is not very happy with it. And they come up with weird remarks, not directly to me, but possibly when I'm passing through the corridors or possibly when I'm actually starting my car to go home. I said, what are the kind of remarks you get? So he's like, the most often faced remark is, oh, were you doing a half day today? And this is at 6:30, mind you. So I was like, oh, okay. And where do you think that's coming from? So he said, you know where that's coming from? Because we have benchmarked productivity in terms of the number of hours we spend, whether we're taking an hour of break at lunch, whether we're taking another hour of break at coffee, or taking a smoke break, probably, if we indulge. So all that is all right and acceptable, unless I'm not leaving at 9:30, then I'm productive, right? So, and I've been facing this. I'll stop here. So this was just an example. And this example made me think really, really hard that how something as small as this can actually relate as microaggression, even if you're not a part of a marginalized section of the society. So I'll leave my thought on that.
Wow, amazing. This is really a good story and example of, from real life, that how we can work with these kind of things, and it just goes unseen for a lot of people. So my next question would go to Russia. So what kind of a culture that has microaggression at work, in your opinion?
Thank you, Fatma, for this question. So microaggression can occur in any workplace culture. So, and that would be regardless of the size of the company or even the organization, especially when there is a lack of awareness, like just Nilakshi mentioned, and even lack of awareness of how to treat people equally, how to treat people inclusively, how to treat people in a way that they would feel that they belong. And these people would be either women and men. So like Justin Lakshmi mentioned, the example about this man in a workplace where he feels like he's not happily welcome because he just, leave at 6:30 p.m. So they often arise in any environment which have not fully embraced the cultural competence or where biases, even if unconscious, are there.
So we spoke about the awareness and the and unconscious and the biases. My God, this is so beautiful. Thank you, Rasha. So my next question would go to Sarah. And what are the examples of microaggression at the workplace? So Nilakshi has spoken about a story that relates to microaggression. Would you add more into that and have an in-depth explanation and more examples of that?
Yeah. Thank you, Fatma. Yes, I can add to what Nilakshi has nicely said. There are a couple of examples that I can bring forward to the table. With the multicultural, diverse workforce that we live in these days, you often hear examples of that when someone addresses another and says, you're the first one that is good or not good from this nationality, whatever that nationality is, in this field of work. And this is an example of microaggression that is based on a subtle stereotype against certain nationalities, be it whether they are good or not good. Doing that generalization towards a certain nationality leads to microaggressions to the members of that nationality. Another one that is more female-oriented, let me put it that way, and we hear it a lot, especially to females that are in leadership positions, where many come and say to women that are firm and assertive, you're pretty firm for a woman, or you're more assertive than other women that we have met in our lifetime. So this is all based on a certain stereotype and a bias, which could be in many cases, it's very subtle. It's something that is deep engraved, not something that is done by intention or for it to harm others. It's not a passive-aggressive type of a situation where we are communicating nicely to harm. It is done because it is a perception that we have, and we take it out this way, unfortunately.
Wow, this is so insightful. So basically, it's from an awareness, from an unconscious to something that we subtly talk about because we are not even aware of what we're doing. Where we're putting, segregating them in let's say boxes that, oh, you're a woman who is so aggressive or so assertive, and I have faced that myself. So going back to Russia. What would be the impact on organizations and employees based on what we've spoken about? So what kind of impact are we looking at?
So picture this. If those examples that Sarah just mentioned were there in the workplace, how would you feel that the team would be feeling? It would be like a slow leak in a tire, They might seem a little bit small, but over time they can really deflate the team spirit. Employees would start feeling as if they are not seen, heard, or respected. They are undervalued, they are misunderstood, and they would lose their sense of belonging in that place, which can make them less eager to jump in conversations or maybe take the lead to do something even important within the team. So what about the organization then? So for the organization, it would be like it's running on a flat tire, that things just don't move as smoothly or fast as they could. So it's going to be a lose-lose situation in the end. The organization is not happy and the employees are not happy. And in order to fix this, we need to create a culture that embraces the happiness and well-being of its employees.
Interesting. So it comes directly under the organizational health index, let's say, and one of the KPIs that we need to put in organizations and be very careful of, how the well-being of our employees are handled. Very, very interesting. Thank you, Rasha. Just to, shed more light, Ms. Sarah. So how can employees handle these kind of situations in the workplace?
Rasha has mentioned a very important and integral word of awareness. So it all starts by awareness. The minute we are aware what microaggressions are, how do they present themselves, what are their impacts on the employees receiving it, how does it impact the organization overall, we start putting a nice little parameter for microaggression within the workplace. The second thing to be done, in my humble opinion, is microaggressions need to be called out rather than be shy away. So the person that is being subjected to a microaggression needs to, regardless whether he or she does it in private or in public, they need to call it out and they need to state that I was subjected to a microaggression, and awareness needs to be uplifted on an organizational level. What does that mean? How is it impacting that person or the team, and then the overall performance of the organization? Then work hard in terms of putting down their opinion as what would be the best way to, so become more of partners with the organization of what would be the best way to deal with it, and try to nip it from the bud rather than allow it to, show its face and then deal with it reactively. Be proactive in how to go about it.
Interesting. So it's awareness, being proactive, having it, said it out loud instead of shying out of it. So I would, if you could, Nilakshi, please, pour more insight from your experience. So how would be the best practices from what Sarah has already mentioned in the organization at a leadership level?
Even before I answer that question of what we do at a leadership level, it is very, very important for the HR, right, to be able to educate the employees. It is a part of awareness, but having managed HR for multiple organizations, I can tell you that we usually have a reactive approach to any sort of aggression, right? And why don't we have a proactive approach? It's not because we don't want to have a proactive approach, but we haven't really devised a mechanism to be able to pick up a heat map, to be able to pick up the early indicators. Now, again, going a step back, why is that so? Because most of my employees are not aware, right, as both Rasha and Sarah were saying, what is microaggression? What is severe enough to be reported? What is severe enough to feel bad about, right? A lot of people just feel comfortable or make themselves comfortable despite not feeling comfortable because they feel maybe this is not serious enough. Maybe I am overreacting. Or as Sarah was mentioning, nationalities, we're like, okay, I think this is how they speak about us across the world. So it's like, it's all right. So that acceptance is an absolute showstopper for any action, whichever level it needs to start from. So now bringing in leadership. So leadership and HR need to have a very cognizant thought process of how do we educate the employees to at least identify microaggression. That's step one. Then there are best practices as to how do we control it? What are the control mechanisms we have? What is the action that we're going to take? All that comes much later. I think today where we stand, across the world, while we are converging as a diverse population that is working in various organizations, we still have a long way to go in terms of identifying what qualifies as microaggression. Once we've done that, and for that you need leadership commitment. That do we really want to call this out as microaggression? Do we really want to call this out as something which you need to report, right? Because a lot of it stems from there as well. This woman thing stems definitely from a lot of leadership mindsets, which is a hierarchy in today's world, but it is true. I personally have had individuals, sort of starting a conversation in large spaces, saying, "Okay, and here we have beauty and brains together." Oh my God, what do you mean by that? Why is that even a call out, right?
Right.
And should
Absolutely.
I feel bad about it or should I feel elated about it? So it has to start from there. If we can start from there, and that's where leadership plays a huge role, and along with HR, I think we would have taken a step towards it.
Right, amazing. So basically, we need to partner with the leaders. HR needs to have partnership with leadership members to mainly address and put the right policies together and implement. So if I could ask you all collectively, what would be the ways of awareness? So if there are any techniques, ways, solutions, options that we could suggest in terms of, we know that it's awareness, but how? We know that we need to call it out, but how? We know that we need to identify it, but it's the what is very beautiful, but it's more impactful when we know the how behind it. So if each one of you, whether Rasha, Sarah, and Nilakshi, could just tell me only one solution each, that would be great for our audience to know.
I can address one of the solutions that I have seen in several organizations that are being very proactive on this. What they do is they include it as part of their onboarding and induction program. So every new employee that is joining newly, they have that element covered within the presentation, within the onboarding package and the onboarding kit. And definitely prior to that, for the people that have been there for some time, not the new joiners, they have already done them awareness sessions, and they have gone through those types of sessions where they brainstorm to understand better and point out things that might have not been thought of as microaggressions, but brought it to the table. And if I may suggest, say, another one that has been seen in several organizations, it's group coaching. So a lot of organizations, what they're offering is group coaching for their employees, where the topic is microaggression. People come and talk about how they feel when they are being subjected to it in order to increase the empathy of the others that were not subjected to it, understand better the parameters, what it is, how it goes in a very subtle manner without us being attentive to it, what it is that we need to keep an eye and an ear open for. So those are two solutions that have been that I have been seeing in several organizations that are being proactive when dealing with microaggressions.
Fantastic. Anything else you would want to add?
Yeah, so if I may jump in as well, I do have solutions on both the organizational level and the employee level. So on the organization level, just as Sarah said, embracing the coaching culture. And that would be through understanding what coaching means and what human beings are, and how do we deal with human beings in terms of understanding that they are okay, and understanding that the culture itself, how can I embrace this coaching mindset? And that can be done, on the leadership and executive level. They can be given those coaching training where they understand more about how can a leader be a coach for themselves and for others in their team. And that would, of course, would enrich the culture of the culture of awareness that microaggressions is not something. We're not even looking at microaggression now. We're looking at how to treat each other in a dignified way, on the human level. So that would be in terms of the organization. And on terms of employees, just be clear on what is okay and what's not okay with you. Clear boundaries, clear communication, and also be clear of what's expected from you. And yeah, and that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Wow, so we spoke about a coaching culture, and we spoke about the inductions on the first day, and this was the highlight from both of you, and in terms of awareness from organizational perspective and an employee. Nilakshi, would you want to add something?
There's just one thing I wanted to add, which I think has worked very well for a couple of organizations I've worked in. So we have, Sarah and Resha have talked about some very effective methods for the employees. And of course, Resha did touch upon leadership coaching. Along with that, I think leadership endorsement towards condemning microaggression, that needs to be speaking out of the rooftop. There should be no shying away from that. And leaders need to, that is the only way accountability will show through, right? And that is one. So that is one thing which really works well in organizations when the leaders have taken the initiative of standing out there, whether it is in a town hall, whether it is in an a lecture that they're doing, whatever the forum, it really doesn't matter what is the forum, but they need to be very prominently endorsing a culture which condemns any kind of aggression or any kind of mistreatment of any other individual. So that is one. And the second, which is more from an HR perspective, because this is an HR conference and we are addressing a lot of HR leaders here, I think HR needs to be extremely assertive about this. And it needs to be assertive about fallouts or actions. It cannot just be sweet talking. It cannot just be posters. It cannot just be, conference room ideas. There has to be action if something is not in line, right? So you need to kind of create case studies where you can tell your employees that feel free to come and tell us, you're not going to be the one who's going to be harmed. There's somebody who is a repeat offender or even a one-time offender for all I care. That is the person who's going to face the repercussion. So HR has to play a very, very assertive role in this.
Nicely said, Nilakshi. Unless systemized into a regulation across the organization, it will go into inconsistency. Very nicely said.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing. So thank you everyone for the participation. If there is anything at the end, each of you want to say as an advice to our audience who are watching this right now.
Why don't Fatima, you tell us a little, because you've got a very, very rich experience in HR and, kind of you're one of the prominent ones in the industry today. So why don't we hear from you as well a little bit?
Well, I'm overwhelmed from all the knowledge that I've just got from three of you. You've got like squared everything and nailed it to the point. So basically, I'm here learning and enriching my experience more and more with having all of you here. So I couldn't have said any better, and I couldn't have even expressed any better. We've covered almost everything. We've covered culture, we've covered health index, we've covered coaching, we've covered inductions, we've covered, we've just, rounded and wrapped it up with a really nice ribbon. So thank you, all of you. I mean, it was been a really enriching experience, and thank you for having me here to moderate this beautiful experience and, facilitating this subject.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fatima. I would like to individually thank you and personally thank you on behalf of PeopleFirst HR Awards for having accepted the offer to moderate this session so beautifully for us. And thank you, both you ladies, for your very, very active and not just active, very, very useful participation in this conversation. It was really wonderful. It was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, so much. I'll just address the question that Fatima asked at the end in terms of advice. My advice would be for anyone that is providing feedback, providing advice, providing or such any discussion. When discussing elements at work, remain objective and remove all the subjective connotations from the discussion. So when we're addressing to provide feedback, address the performance of the person rather than the subjective elements of that employee. When we're giving advice, giving any discussion, let's avoid the subjectivity and just deal with the objective element of what is at hand that we're discussing. Because the minute that we start bringing in the personal and the subjective attributes, that is when it starts crumbling down and we go into the microaggressions and the other miscommunication routes that could lead to harm. Thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you, Nilakshi, for having us today.
It was an absolute pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So thank you, Nilakshi, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Fatma. I really enjoyed the conversation today. And if I were to end it with something, it's just that we are human beings before we are employees. So this is very important. And humans are the real resource for any company to succeed. It's not about money. It's not about, how much skills and knowledge are there. It's about people. So people, and people. So yeah, and that's it.
Nicely said.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Fatima. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Rasha.
Wow, that was a truly insightful discussion on microaggressions in the workplace. A topic so crucial for fostering respect and inclusion. These subtle behaviors may seem small, but their impact is profound, affecting not just mental health and but also job satisfaction. Addressing microaggressions isn't just about compliance. It's about creating a supportive environment where everyone can thrive. Through awareness, clear policies, and leadership commitment, we aim to build a workplace where diversity isn't just acknowledged, but celebrated as well. A big thank you to our esteemed panelists, Rasha, Sarah Obaid, Fatima Ibrahim, and Ms. Nilakshi Mukherjee for sharing their valuable perspectives and expertise. I believe the strategies and insights you've shared will equip us all to identify and address microaggressions, fostering a more inclusive and respectful work environment for everyone.